Good day, ladies and gentlemen. It's Eric Coffin. I'm speaking to you from the January 2020 Metal Investor Forum in Vancouver. I'm here with Brandon Macdonald. He's the CEO of Fireweed Zinc, FWZ on the venture. What's your OTC?
FWEDF.
FWEDF on the OTC. Fireweed has a very large, it's already a very large zinc lead deposit in the Yukon. The existing zones on the Mac Pass property where the resources are called Tom and Jason, they've got about 50 million tons already. But what we want to talk about today is this. I guess it's not really a new discovery. It's an area you knew about when you greatly expanded the Mac Pass property.
Yeah.
You went into this area called the boundary zone, and the last two holes of the season that you reported from the zone were crazy intercepts. I mean, do you want to just give people the highlights?
Yeah, so the first hole was 230 meters true thickness of 3.4% zinc, and the second one was same true thickness of 4.1. And in the second one in particular, the first 100 meters of that true thickness was 7.9% zinc. So when that's from surface, right? So when you're conceptualizing an open pit, considering the average head grade of a zinc mine is around 4%, to be double that in a open pit with little to no strip and bulk tonnage capability, right, is pretty incredible. And what we saw within those is, for example, 6 meters true thickness of 42% zinc.
I mean, they're crazy numbers. I mean, it's hard to, if you don't follow base metal stories, you might not understand that these are pretty amazing drill holes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're to look at it like, I'm going to preface this by saying this is me doing this, not Brandon, and I hate gold equivalents. Personally, I think they're stupid. The only reason I do them sometimes is because, for some reason, it seems to be easier for people to get their head around it. You look at that top 100 meters, that's like a 3.5 gram open pit gold zone. I mean, if that was a gold hole, the stock would have gone completely insane when they put those results out. The fact that we're not in a strong zinc market right now, you can get as much love as you should have for this, but the important thing for our purposes is this is what you're focused on now.
Yeah.
This is where you're going to be this summer.
Yeah.
Now, what are your thoughts on the best way to move this forward, and what are your thoughts on what you're dealing with here?
Yeah, the first question was, what's the scale of the opportunity at boundary zone? We see mineralization for at least 1.5 kilometers end-to-end open in both directions. The core of it's about 400 meters by 300 meters, and with that kind of thickness we talked about before. The grade on average is not terribly impressive. So the question was, okay, what are the controls in this high grade? How do we trace more of that? What's the total scale of the opportunity at those healthier grade numbers, right? And what can we do with the lower grade stuff? Is there any way to make margin with the lower grade stuff? Which led us to do some ore sorting tests last summer, which actually led us to then drill boundary zone because the ore sorting was very successful. Like a 70% rejection rate of material and only losing 15% of your zinc in the process, right? Nice. So very, very good. So we think even the low grade can stand, but obviously we want to find out what's the controls on the high grade. And the next thing was, okay, if this is not a SETX, what is...
Because this is not the same as Tom and Jason.
No,
this is a different sort of
This
thing.
is not a shale barite hosted zinc lead deposit, right? It's not that finely laminated what you see at a classic SETX deposit. So we were struggling with a geological analog. We found in some papers this description at one of the new deposits at Red Dog of this vein horizon. And we saw photos of it and we're like, that looks pretty similar to what we're seeing. And the conceptual there was that these vein horizons would hit a barite cap. And at that barite cap, which acts as both a physical trap for the fluid and a chemical trap for it because it scavenges the sulfur there to produce the sphalerite and galena, you end up with these massive sulfide bodies at the bottom end of these barite horizons, which is the classic what you think of at Red Dog and the more classic sort of SETX.
For those that aren't familiar, Red Dog is a zinc mine in Alaska owned by Teck, which is arguably the best zinc mine in the world, and certainly I think one of the most profitable ones.
Yeah.
It's a pretty incredible deposit.
Yeah, and like, look, I want to be clear, like, we think
you're not
that
saying it's Red Dog.
Yeah, we're not. What we, saying that, hey, we think this is an epithermal gold or something doesn't mean you think it's the best epithermal gold deposit in the world, right?
Yeah.
So we lacked a genetic model.
Yeah.
So now we think we have one. And the question now is, okay, so these vein horizons can stand on their own, as I think we've seen by the stellar grade we've got there and the great hits we got.
Yeah.
But can we find where it's plumbed into barite horizons? Because then you'll get a real concentration, localization of it, and hopefully a nice juicy lens, right? So we know these barite horizons exist in the stratigraphy above boundary zone. The question is, are they at any point plumbed into that vein system? So that's the task before us for this summer is one, what is the extent and opportunity within the vein system? And then two, is there a place where it's plumbed into a barite horizon and you get the massive sulfide lenses as a result?
Well, also, I mean, you were showing me a map a little bit earlier. It looks like there's probably, I mean, arguably somewhere there's a broader opportunity because you were showing me a bunch of boulders and stuff like that. They're actually quite a ways away from this. They're not from boundary. Like I don't see how they get there.
They're down ice from, some of them are up ice from boundary, right? And some of them are around a corner, so it didn't go down ice than up ice, right? So with these mineralized glacial erratics, we know there's at least one more system. There's an area called 11 Creek. There was a strong soil anomaly that Kaminko drilled. They didn't see mineralization, so they called the holes. They got their assays back, and the second hole ended in about 1.5% zinc at the bottom. So you think you'd go back and drill deeper. They never went back.
Okay.
Right? So there's an assumption that that's mineralized to some degree,
Right.
presumably beyond that 1 meter.
Right.
So we see a strong anomaly there. We see some boulders around there. We see some boulders up ice from boundary, which suggests they come even further up ice, including some massive sphalerite and galena boulders. So the whole area is just like overflowing with potential, and that's part of the issue of like how do we concentrate our efforts. I don't think we'll get to test every theory this summer. It's just too much to look at. A lot of it will be blanketing it in gravity surveys, for example, which will, one, spot the barite, two, spot in the vein horizons, there's a siderite association, which will also make it a bit denser. So that should also, be lit up a little bit in the gravity. So that could be a multi-season analysis, right? So, but in the meantime, you take the known stuff and you step it out and you expand on it and you hit some new targets. So I think it's going to be an exciting year for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you look at the thickness of the zone, and even in the area you've got some comfort based on past work where this thick zone exists. I mean, you can't do the math on camera, but I think boundaries, in all likelihood, boundary is going to take Mac past through 100 million tons. I don't know what the grade's going to be.
Yeah,
but I think it's something where, given the scale of these things, even a 10 or 15 hole program is going to show you a lot potentially in terms of tonnage. And the other thing I think is worth mentioning.
That's the beauty is that when you're hitting 230 meter intersections,
you had a lot
every
of tons.
hole is a lot of tons.
It's a hell of a lot of tons.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you showed me in the pictures of the core that I think it's not the type of thing that's necessarily going to get people excited, but it's actually pretty important. This is much coarser grained material than most of what's at Tom and Jason. And if you're milling base metal sulfides to produce concentrate, the coarser the stuff is, the less work you have to do to grind it, and that's actually very significant because the grinding and the power involved in the grinding is a really large part of your operating costs.
Yeah.
It's usually the largest part of your operating costs.
Yeah, noise is the biggest chunk, right? And that's the big question mark for us as we do. So this winter we're going to be doing an advanced sorting test, and that will then, the results of the sorting test will go into a metallurgical test for boundary zone. So we'll get some sense of what the appropriate grind sizes and recoveries, to overall recoveries and stuff like that. So I think that is something for investors to watch for before we get to summer.
And you think you may be, I know you were talking, you might be flying this before summer.
Yeah, potentially VTEM mag. The VTEM shows up the shales because of the graphite, and the mag shows the mafic volcanics. Okay. So it's a very quick reconnaissance mapping tool. And it's something we can do in winter. There's not a lot we can do in winter. So.
All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Fireweed Zinc F TSX-WZ on the venture, very well managed company, very tight share structure, huge deposit already. Obviously, based on what's going on at Boundary, it's going to get an awful lot bigger, I think. And drilling at Boundary this summer, this is the kind of drilling that certainly has the potential to deliver just crazy drill holes. So I think Fireweed's actually going to have a very exciting year, and I think you want to sort of get on this and start paying attention and get your head around what the potential is before the real work starts this year. Thanks for coming by, Brendan.
Thanks for having me.